a student of philosophy, meditation, natural healing techniques, metaphysics, physical mediumship, crystal acupuncture, author of Quantum Entanglement and Journey into the Unknown World, The Way to Oneness Revisited. Also, Discover Your Baby's Spirit, A Mother's Guide, and many other great titles. I think 17 books in total. I'd like to welcome Dr. Margaret Rogers Van Coops to the show. How you doing, Doctor?
I'm doing fine, thank you, but I've got a technical question. I'm looking at this meeting is being recorded. Continue. Can I click that?
Absolutely.
So I don't want to mess up anything. There we are. Okay. Yes. Hello. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm so delighted.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you on the show. And I think, going over some of the work that you've done, just kind of reading, your bio and some of the stuff, it's like I feel like I could have an entire episode just on your biography and then as far as like your knowledge, I feel like one episode just is not going to do it justice. So we'll just try to cover a few basic things. And I feel like I could have a series of episodes to try to cover some of the work you've done and some of the stuff. So it's definitely an honor to have you. And you're diving into some real interesting topics and even some things that I don't even really know a whole heck of a lot about on when it comes to like the Trinity stone healing and the crystal acupuncture. So I would definitely like to touch on some of that. But with that being said, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I went into California and I have to admit that I had no idea about people living in their tents on the streets.
Yeah,
and
tent
California,
cities.
yeah, it's been put in the news, but I'm afraid I don't watch the news too much. So when I'm driving around, I'm looking at all these people everywhere along the freeways, even in the streets, on the sidewalk, like near a Ralph's or something, so they can just walk to get whatever they need. And it's worse than 1986, that period, with the earthquake and all the other things we had. I was amazed. I was stunned. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people leaving California. I
Yes.
hear it's not
They're all
necessarily,
here. They're all
yeah,
here.
yeah. It's not the Arizona and Texas, right? Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
hear I don't know personally, but just from, what I've heard, I hear it's kind of a tough place to be right now. And I don't know. It's definitely not somewhere that I would want to be, I don't think. So I had read that you had used contact healing as a young child, as a very young child. You kind of started being able to help others and heal people. You had you told me an interesting story before we started recording about you were born in England, right? In the
Yes,
UK,
that's right. Yes,
and
yes.
right in during World War II, right?
Yes, 1942, June the 24th, Midsummer Night's Day, which is the whole thing about Shakespeare and the Midsummer Night's Dream. And of course, I grew up with that. And then I also grew up with 6 month, 24 is 6 and 42 is 6. So everybody used to say to me, oh, you have the 3 6s, you must have the devil's number. I was so shocked. But when you add the 3 6s up, it's 18, and 8 and 1 is 9, and 9 is a completion. And I really know, I've known since I could talk, that I'm here to educate, teach people whatever spirit is giving me. And I've done that throughout my life, and I will continue to do it until it's my time to leave. And so I'm the original real pioneer in a time when, so many people were dying in London, and they would come on buses and things, and I'd be sitting there with my mom, and I'm getting this message, like 3 years old, go tell that lady it's okay. It took so much courage to go up to a stranger, because I've been told don't talk to strangers,
Right.
So I'd wait till we're getting off, and I'd excuse me, it's going to be all right, don't worry, he's safe. And she's, what, how do you know? And I remember that one, but there were so many like that. She even got off the bus and followed and talked to my mum to make sure she could get the message. And that was an impressive moment for me, because, you learn by your experiences. So I always tell now, if I get a message, I don't go into great details, but just enough to comfort someone.
And then from there, you didn't do like take the typical path though that, maybe a psychic medium would, or because I mean you're more into like naturalistic healing and stuff like that now, right?
Well, by the time I was 7, my grandpa was very famous in England. He was well known for finding all the wells in India for water and whatever oil and coal they were looking for in those days. And he was always successful. I could tell you a lot of stories about him too, if you're interested. But the bottom line is, at 7 years old, he took me out to an area with his little dowsing rod and had me walk around, and he'd say, like, find water. And of course, it's just a field. And I'd walk around with this little thing and it popped down. And then he'd say, well done, you found water. And he'd say, there's metal under here, find that. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then later, about a year later, he took me to a site where an alien spaceship, the 3-winged landing thing, you could actually see the burned area. And it was like a year since he'd been out there, and it was still burned. There was no grass growing. You could actually see the fin shapes and the scorching in the middle. And he's telling me that, that this was an alien craft. And I'm having images of these aliens. And much later, I realized that they used to come into my room when I was 2. And I also found out my mother had seen it. There's a little blue one, but we thought it was a little blue boy in a dressing gown because you don't know anything in those days. So, I was just thrown in the deep end. So anything you ask me, I can go anywhere pretty well.
So this show's gonna take a turn that I wasn't expecting, because I'm gonna have to ask about aliens and some stuff like that. And that's not why I had you on the show. It's just it's interesting to me though, because I mean, I don't know how many, but you're probably at least the 20th guest I've had on, at least 20, probably more, that I bring them onto a show to talk about something, and this topic of aliens comes up. And which is, it's a fascinating topic. So I guess with that being said, since we're on the alien subject, what are they? Are they spiritual beings? Are they material beings like you and I, or maybe
Yeah,
conscious energy living in a material body?
Yeah, they really are. I had experience with a lot with the Greys, and I had some experiences with the Lemurian. I can't explain this too much. I don't want to particularly hold you up there, but the Lemurians became space age people ages and eons of time ago, and now they're all very much more spiritual than physical. But I learned a lot through them and their technology. And I didn't tell anyone, because back in 1950s, being a young 10-year-old, 8 to 10-year-old, I was just, mum would take me someplace and people would say, have you got a message for me? It kind of forced me, but then again, in retrospect, as I got older, I realized if they hadn't have asked me, then I probably would never have developed my psychic ability. And of course, in those days, after a war was finished, everyone had lost loved ones, and they wanted to know if their loved ones were safe in heaven, because that's the way they thought. They didn't know about the oneness. Actually, I heard the voice of God when I was 4.5. My sister had been born, and I'd been asked to go to the kitchen and pick some things up for mum. And I never made it to the kitchen because I got in the hall, which was dark. The light flashed on, and I heard, child, you're a child of God. You will know great suffering, and you will help those who are suffering. And I'm like petrified, because I don't know where the noises sound around like we've got now, but we didn't have that then. And I basically was frightened. And then it's like, I'm thinking, who are you? And I think I probably voiced it. And then I heard, I am the one. And I said, what's the one? And he said, all that is. And I said, what is all that is? And gave me oneness. And then I am God. So I didn't go to the kitchen. I went back into the living room, and I shut the door, and I looked at my mum and her foot, because she was a cripple. and I knew that was suffering. And so I knew right then I had to go around with these hot hands and heal everyone, including my mum. So I was always doing that as well. And I learned like picking flowers, like lilac and stuff, and lavender, and putting them in fat and making my own formulas for my mum's foot. And that led eventually in life to, I didn't have words for them, but it led to aromatherapy. I was never a skilled one, but I met Valerie Warwood, who was at the time. And so we worked together for a while on that. So that helped me evolve. I had reflexology, but it was my push-pull, push the energy and pull the energy. I hadn't got a name for it. So that's how naive I was, just to give you an idea. I just did what Spirit said. And evolved day by day, bit by bit, and loved to do what I was doing. But it wasn't easy.
So
I was criticized.
Yeah, I bet. I bet you were. So you were in communication with spirit. Were you in communication with aliens as well, like telepathically, or did they? How did that process work?
Yeah, they came in. Oh, there's so many. I have a book called My Journey into the Oneness that came out this year. And that was when I came out of the closet, as it were, and admitted the truths. I kept so many secrets. So people might like to read that rather than me sit here telling everybody about it. But everything that I experienced started around 2 years old and just evolved and evolved over the years. Yeah. So yes, I've had a lot to do with aliens. And I've had a lot to do with the archangels, Siddhartha Buddha, Red Cloud. I mean, I didn't even know, Siddhartha Buddha was. He came originally as Sid, and then later Arthur, and he had accents. And then one day he put it all together for me and said, my name is Siddhartha. And I'm like, who are you? There's so many stories, but that was a particular one because he used to appear like with bones and these on his face and like a native, and shocked me, because I'm sort of drifting off to sleep and meditating or something. And one day I said, don't do that, because he's right here in my face. And so he disappeared, and then he was this tiny little yellow thing about yay big, was dancing towards me, and I eventually realized it was a man in some sort of yellowy suit. And when he finally got up close, it was a clown. And which is equally sort of scary. And then I said, what are you doing? And then he went down out of my vision and came up, and he was a white man. He went down, he came up, and he was a black man. He went down, he came up, and he was a giant, and so on. And he taught me, spirit can be anything they want to be. So if someone comes to me and they say, who's my spirit guide? And they're thinking they have a Native American spirit guide, which is one of the common things back when, then they would appear as a native. And then, if you're into black, then they'd appear as black or whatever it was. So everybody got to see a spirit guide that looked something that was familiar and safe to them. Now today, everyone knows about the oneness, so it's a bit different. Yeah.
They say that about in near-death experiences too, right? Sometimes, like if a godlike entity or a Jesus type entity, if you will, usually it usually resonates with them, right? Something that they're familiar with.
Well, I clinically died. I had Parkinson's disease. They give me the wrong med, and it was one of the dangerous drugs. And I didn't know, and I'm shaking, and my shakes would go away, and I'd pop another pill because I thought I need it because I'm shaking again. And unknown to me, I was ODing myself. So, while I was in that death mode, I was saying to spirit guides, I can't stay here. I can't do this. This is too much. You can see what I'm like. I'm shaking, and I've got the whole world in my body, and I just don't know what to do. And I had it, and they're like, you haven't started yet your work. You're still in training. I said, don't tell me that. But the bottom line was I eventually said, okay, I agree. And then they gave me the humans gave me an injection into my heart, and I felt that, and I came back. And after that, I was walking in the oneness all the time. And that was hard because everything I was talking about was surprising to people, and yet stunning, and yet scary to them, because nobody knew what I knew, you see. So I had to stand alone. It was difficult, but I survived it. If I shocked you.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. As a young person, in church services, you said something about, maybe proving the survival of life after death to people. How did you do that? How do you do that? How do you prove that?
Well, first of all, I gotta set this up a little bit. If you've just been killed in a car accident or bomb raid or whatever it is, you don't just suddenly reappear unless you're already awakened to your loved ones. What happens is your spirit guides are around because they know this is going to happen, and so they're ready for you. If you had cancer, for example, in hospital, you're seeing a lot of your family friends, and they come by who've passed over, and you drift into this. It doesn't matter about this world. I want to be somewhere else, and too much pain or whatever it is going on. Oops! Oh, hang on, danger. Pause a minute. Okay, I've got that thing again. I have to kind of continue. Okay.
Okay. You talk about coding the spirit of a child. Is it like a process of maybe them selecting their DNA or their parents, or that helping them, maybe the selection of their parents helps them to kind of I don't know what the word is, get them through the I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. Maybe perhaps the experience that they're looking for, that they're soul seeking.
Well, that's a loaded question because I have a lot of answers, but the bottom line is, you've heard people say I'm the seventh son of a seventh generation of a seventh something. Well, in general, we all are watching the 7 generations yet to be born before we can turn up. And in the spirit world, we have a unity agreement long before that, even, that we will continue whatever is going on. And in a way, I want to say it's a charade, because you consciously in the oneness know everything, but when you get down here, you've got amnesia. And so in the DNA, you have the ancestry of preparation for your arrival through 7 generations, sometimes even more. And what you do is you have a spiritual bonding in the spirit world, where you harmonize all your codings. Now, we all come in with a soul structure coding, which is too involved to talk about now, but basically it gives us our personality. And then when we get born, our parents and extended family and friends and associates develop our character in the way that we go out in the world and do stuff. So genetically, I talked about my grandfather in the beginning. I'm a lot like that side of the family. I take after my father's side, whereas my sister takes after my mother's side, where there's some Japanese in us. And so she's got the longer cheekbones and a little bit of she's very pretty, actually. And so, we are all genetically engineered. Let's think about that from time immemorial. Unless you're upper class and like in England, a small country where they keep a record of births and deaths in Bibles and churches and things, most of us don't know who we are. And of course, for my history, it's all about European people. So, I've probably got a lot of stuff in my DNA from European. And that is subliminal too. And when you think, I wrote Donald Trump, The Enigma of Society, and everybody thought it was politics. It's not. It's about his ancestors, the DNA. And we went back to the 1600s, and my only research was for names, dates of death and birth from Wikipedia. I knew nothing about his life. I didn't want to. and I channeled the whole book. And those who've read it come back and say, wow, you can really see how he's picked up things from the ancestors and used those during his time in office, and also before, of course. So I hope people will pick that up and read it and understand just by his example, how their example of their life can be seen. When, you know, we've got 4 generations sometimes now, so they can actually look back and see, you know, new baby, mom, mother, you know, their mother, and then grandmother, you know. So what's that? These things keep coming up, and I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on with my computer. All right, so I don't know if that shows up on your screen, but I just had an AT&T show up.
I don't see it.
Okay, so I won't comment. I'm sorry, everybody, I'm commenting. All right, so you know, the DNA is very vital to our genetic growth. But once we interact with the RNA of all the different input that comes from all the different people in our life, we can often feel like we don't fit in with the family because we feel so different because we've absorbed so much. And for me, being psychic, I was absorbing so many people I was meeting. So that allowed me to develop more of a personality in my psyche, and then develop that in my characteristics where I went around in the world. Yeah.
That's fascinating. And with this thought process, then you do believe then everything is conscious energy.
It's not, well, if you're talking in terms of here, us arriving, no, we're not necessarily conscious. In fact, the conscious mind is a liar and a cheat. In the subconscious mind, it's just nothing but pictures. So if I gave you a picture, for example, of you in a swimsuit on somewhere by the ocean when you're 4, you'd look at that and go, oh, is that me? I can't remember that. But if I give you a picture, say, of 15, and you look at that, you will make associate, because your subconscious has now got all these pictures, and you'll make associated pictures from that one picture. And then you'll build your rationale through into the conscious mind. Oh, this is why I'm seeing it. But of course, the rational mind could be twisting it around and saying what it means this when it actually means something else. So you have to go deeper. You have to go into your deep subconscious, where your spirit self has the truth. And that means meditation. It means trance work, listening to spirit. Yes.
And how does this how is there a relation to this in time? You know, you talk about the 7 generations and perhaps spirit or soul, if you will, on the other side, maybe waiting to incarnate into another life. I mean, what is your concept of time with all this?
Okay, in the oneness, what everything in the nucleus of coming into embodiment now is timeless. There's no time. And but when you decide to come, I made a wheel for one of my lectures. So we've got a wheel, cartwheel, and in the middle is the hut, right? And then we got all these spokes. Now you could go down one spoke and live in, say, 300 AD, and then you could go down another spoke and live in 3000 BC. Okay, so we think of it chronologically, but we actually incarnate in different periods in history, fast forward, back. And that's why a lot of us just seem to know what the future's going to be like, because we've been there, we've seen it.
Right. I could buy into that. I think that actually makes it even more fun to think that maybe perhaps, you know, you could live a lifetime in, say, you know, the 1500s in your next lifetime, rather than it's not just going to be, say, 200 years from now or 100 years from now, from this point in time. So what you're saying is that you could potentially incarnate in any place in time, right?
Let me tell you a little story that you can
Sure.
do it in this life too, if you get out of your body and you're in your spirit. I was in bed sleeping, and I was doing experiments with a friend, and we would go out of body, and she would leave something beside the bed, and I'm supposed to look at it, see what it was, and then when we were awake and meet again, I tell her what was there, and we were pretty successful at that. So one night I was doing this, and I manifested at the foot of her bed, and there was some private business going on. So I thought, I'm not supposed to be here. And next thing I knew, I was standing on some sand and some seaside place, and there was a man and a woman walking towards me, and they walked right through me. And I went, oh, and I looked around to watch her, and she looked back. He didn't, but she looked back, and she felt me. Okay, and I'm not dead. Okay, so from there I'm thinking, oh, okay, so I could go anywhere I want to go. So I decided I want to go to a museum. I don't know why, but I did. The next thing, I'm in the museum, and I'm wandering around, and I see this sort of there's 5 windows, and the 6th one is hexagon shape. That's it, with the entrance in. And I'm in there, and I'm looking at some ancient bones of some prehistoric small critters. And a man and a woman came into the room, and I heard her say, "It's so cold in here." And I remember thinking, gosh, am I that cold? Because I'm a spirit, you see. And then they left, and I was looking at this small critter, and I thought I could go back in time, and I decided I wanted to. And in that moment, Sister Teresa, who's Saint Teresa, was working with me, and she said, "Margaret, you're not ready." I've gone. And I manifested in the past, right in front of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I freaked myself out so much. I slammed back into my body. I wasn't in the right way. I was sort of half in, half out. I had a thumping migraine. And the only way I could get out of body again was to knock myself out with painkillers, which I did. And I remember coming out like this and then coming back in to my body the right way. And my headache was gone. So yes, I had all these weird experiences that most people don't have.
That's fascinating. And that's pretty deep. That's a pretty deep out of body experience through meditation.
Mm-hmm. Most people want to get out of body, but when it comes down to it, they're afraid, you see. And then they hear this roaring sensation, and then that's not the way to come out, because then if you do come out, you're rushing out and you don't remember anything. You just have to allow yourself to just go where it's like, if you think you want to drive in the car, you don't think turn left, turn right, turn this, you just go.
Mm-hmm. Let it flow, right?
Let it flow.
Trinity stone healing and crystal acupuncture. Can we talk a bit about that?
Yes, I love to talk about it. First of all, Trinity stone are triangles. And I didn't get any of those out, but a triangle with an inner triangle cut out. In the business, they call them something normal, don't call them triangles or anything, but I had to get them made. They call them something holes, donut holes, that's it, even though they don't look like a donut. But I had to design them, and I had to go to China to get them made for me specially. And the Trinity is to work on unifying yourself emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and practically, in being able to connect to the higher echelon of the oneness. And you can either put them on individually, like one on your, they're not this big. I can't make my fingers that big, small, but here, and then here on the throat and on the heart chakra, the solar plexus, the base chakra, and one under the left side, which is where the spleen chakra is. And so many people have been saying the spleen chakra is between the base and the solar plexus. It's not. Okay, the spleen chakra is where the spleen is, which is in your waistline. And the spleen chakra's job is to keep all the other 6 chakras balanced and in harmony. And if you've got a fatty liver or anything like that, you can jolly well tell you're not in harmony. If you're healthy and you're strong and your brain works wonderfully well, then I hope you see me as a living example of what I want people to look like when they get to my age. We don't need to be going, oh, I got a bad heart, or I got this, which brings me to health. Big topic, studied that for many, many years. Yeah. And I would say to anyone listening, you are what you eat. And if you eat all that bad food, you're going to have bad body inside.
Yeah, that's another thing that seems to come up in my shows all the time is diet, and it's an important one for me too, because I'm diabetic, and I can absolutely buy into that. You are what you eat. A healthy diet's very, very important, and I think that's probably one of the keys to longevity, right? Is
Well,
eating right.
My husband was diabetic too, and his heart had major things wrong, and they told him to go home and die. I gave him 15 more years, and so he only passed 2019. But when he was 62, they said his heart had it. But he revasculinated, and then they could do the surgery, and then because of all the meds, then all the bad things started to happen. I came home with all the herbs, all the alternative stuff, and he looked at me and he said, Margaret, I know what you can do, but I trust the doctors. I'm like, what? That was his choice. You can't make people go against what they believe. And you know where that comes from? Oh, you poor little thing, your nose is running, you're only 3 years old. Let's go to the magical doctor who can give you a magical medicine.
Right.
And of course, the kid takes the medicine. And you grow up with a foundation thought that every time you're ill, you have to trust the doctor.
Yes. This
so
is
everybody trust your alternative medicine people who know their herbs and things. Yes.
Yep, I'd agree with that. I know I catch a lot of hardship from friends and family because I don't.
But can I just tell you something? I'm interrupting you, but you said you're suffering with, having problems with your pancreas. So this is a spleen chakra. Okay, I'm going to stand up for a minute and show you something. If you do this and you go fast, and then the other way, and then the other way, and the other way, you've got two vortices in there, okay, that are sliding past. And if you keep spinning them, you're going to charge up that area, and then that's going to charge up your other chakras. And then if you take something like slippery elm, it'll clean out your digestive system, and all your numbers will come back into place. We can talk more about that privately, but for anyone listening, it is important to clean out your digestive system when you got that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to, if Western medicine's your thing, people's thing, I don't want to discourage how they feel they need to get medical, but
yeah,
I know with me, like I do catch a lot of flack from people because I think they think that I don't, like, I'm not taking care of myself properly because I don't go to the doctor. Well, for the first 5 years, I didn't even take medication for my diabetes at all. I just controlled it through diet. And I think I did a pretty good job. But I had a slip up, and then I ended up in the hospital, and it was my own fault. It was my own doing. And anyway, not to get into personal stuff, but they ended up putting me on insulin and stuff like that. So I am on that, but I don't know. I just feel like at least in my case, the doctors don't really have anything good to offer me.
Yeah, you see, there's another thing about this. When I grew up to be ready for my career, I went into nursing. I actually wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't think I was clever enough. I was in a high school that was very, very good, and it was 2 years of 3 years, 6, what we call, which would have been 2 years of college. So by the time I went to a nursing hospital to learn, because we didn't have university courses or classes in those days, and studied, I was one of the more educated ones because I'd had those 2 years. And the thing was, you had to know every aspect of anatomy and physiology. And the doctors who were studying also had to come onto the wards and do practical things. And you'd be amazed how many would come up to me and say, I can't remember this patient in bed, so what is their problem, and what when they come back, well, what do you think I should give them? I was like, I can't tell you that. And the same when I was in this country, I was working with all the AIDS people, with the doctor, I won't mention names, and there was two doors. You can come into Margaret's door and come into the doctor's door. The ones who went in the doctor's door, we lost them. The ones who went in my door are still alive today. So that's choice. Well, because this person who was there, I was working with, knew what I was doing, he would come and ask me to diagnose his patients. And I said, I can't do that. I'm not allowed to do that.
Right.
Right. But there was so many guesswork things going on during AIDS because nobody really knew what it was. But I was, because I was listening to Spirit.
My problem with it too is I think at least in Western medicine, I think they're missing a key component to health, right? They're missing the spiritual, the emotional aspects of your health, and they're just focusing on the materialistic part. And there's just so much more to get in control of your health. And I think oftentimes too, with the medications that they make, all it does is it covers up symptoms. It doesn't really fix any problems. And that drives me crazy. It drives me absolutely crazy.
I agree with you. The whole pharmaceutical business has us under their thumb. And until we all collectively rise up and say these meds, I mean, you only got to watch a commercial, smiley face, but if you take this, it's really ridiculous. So why would anyone want to, take that pill when you hear how many things, side effects it causes? And yet people still do it because they believe the doctor knows best. And until we teach everyone to understand that thousands of years ago, there weren't doctors, people knew what herbs and things to take by experimentation there. So it's not that we are against experimentation, but we should not be telling people, here's a pill, it costs you $4, it'll make you better, and it kills them.
And I think people in general, not everybody, of course, but a vast majority of people, like, they're too focused on material, and they look at themselves as just a living, breathing body when we're just, I feel like we're so much more than that. Matter of fact, I think we're more of the other than the physical body that we're currently in. And I think when it comes to medicine anyway, I think a lot of people, they tend to just view it in that regard, that,
Well, it's the same with this. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but
you're good.
It's the same with this COVID-19. I wrote the book. Well, first of all, I put a small book out that you can find on Amazon, which was 4 blogs that I'd put up on LinkedIn about COVID. And after I'd done that, about 6 months later, Spirit told me to write a book. And I sat down and I channeled all these high ascended masters, and they've signed at the end of each part they wrote, they signed it at the bottom, their name. And I put it up to be published on Amazon, and they're blocking it. Now, there's a lot of information about sound. The way to kill any virus is colloidal silver. You just have to remember that it goes in distilled water, and you'd be amazed how many people have come to me and said, oh, I'm taking it in regular water. That kills the silver off. It doesn't work. And then they wonder why they're ill. Distilled water's got nothing in it but CO. Okay. And so when you put the silver in, it goes a little yellow. You don't put a lot. You only put like about a teaspoon of pepper, drop of 4, about that much, into 6 to 8 ounces of water. You drink it on an empty stomach. You wait 2 hours. Now, what does it do? The silver goes into the blood system and it goes through your brain. And there isn't one part of your blood system that isn't cleaned and cured of any virus or bug or worm or tapeworm or whatever you want to think of that's in your body, because it takes away everything that these creatures live off. Okay, so after the 2 hours, then you come back and you put in your prebiotics and your probiotics. Okay, so you build up your immune system. Another one is to take slippery elm. If you're having irritable bowel syndrome, which is another sign of an imbalance in your digestive system, you take the slippery elm, take it out of the capsules, put it in a glass, powder, it's powder, and then add a little bit of warm water to that, stir it up, usually add about that much, drink it down, and it will line your entire digestive system. And that's like a balm. So say you have an ulcer, it sticks onto the ulcer like that, and that allows it to heal. It's like putting a Band-Aid. I did that, and I did the colloidal silver, and I went to my doctor, because my numbers are all over the place because my husband died, and I was just eating and doing anything and worried and anxious and all of that. So I went back, and she saw she said, "What did you do? The only thing that's up is your sugar." And I said, "Yeah." She said, "But what have you done to that?" I said, 3 spoonfuls of sugar in my tea. But everything else, all my numbers were slap in the middle. Okay. And that's just doing those 2 things. It's one of the most healthy things you can do. And of course, your skin looks better, your body looks better. There's a lot of things I know, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking.
Right.
My best growth period was between 86 and 2010, because I was teaching in Japan. And Japan students are brilliant, and they can study intently. So I would go over there and I would do 6 days straight from 9 in the morning till 6 at night, with just lunch and breakfast, of course, in between. But they would do theory and practice. And I had about 7 courses that they all attended. So today they're fully qualified metaphysicians.
Wow.
And some of them have even got the PhD through California University now.
That's impressive.
Mm.
Can you talk a little bit about your crystal acupuncture? I think I've seen a YouTube video, and that's pretty fascinating.
Better
stuff.
than talk about it, I'll show you. This
Yes,
is my
absolutely.
This was around my neck the whole time I had Parkinson's disease. So it means a lot to me. But basically, if you look at the top of your thumb, it's hard to show it on the camera, but you could draw a circle up here. Now, some people don't have a very big top of their thumb, but you want to be about 2 millimeters away from the nail. See how I've got that? Can you see it? Okay, and you have to push it in so that it's not just resting on the skin, you push it in. And then this hand will send energy through the crystal, and that when it's going through the crystal, the cells, what do you call it, molecules of the rock you're using are compacted from where, like this, all on top of one another. And so your healer energy has to wind its way through all these molecules to get out the point end, right? And when it comes out the point end, it doesn't come out just as a dribble, it comes out as a laser beam. It's coming out. And then that laser beam goes on, in my thumb case, it's going to go along my meridian up here, and it'll go up into my crown chakra, and it'll come back down, and it'll go to my big toe on the same side. Same with this side, the other side. Now, if you do each of these fingers, it goes down to each of your toes. Those are your meridians, okay? And when you work those meridians, I'll come back to showing you again the technique. It's very simple. You put it on that 2 millimeter behind the nail, and you hold it, and you want to feel some kind of energy moving through your body. Now, let's say you're not sensitive and you don't feel anything, you just impulse. You don't take it, you don't do this. You leave it on the point, and I'm showing, if you can see, I don't know if you can see that little implant. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. Yep.
Okay. So you put that on there, and then you leave it there, and you just push in, and maybe 3 times. Now, I've already got my big toe on this side tingling. Okay. Now, if I want to spin the meridian, you make a little circle. in the point. I'm exaggerating. But you just make a tiny little circle. And that is like spinning the energy water out of in the washing machine. When you spin it in your meridian, you're spinning it all the way up to your brain, all the way down to your feet. And that way you're spinning out all the negativity in that meridian. And I used to do, when I had Parkinson's disease, I was trembling so much. And that's when Master Chan came to me and said, okay, now we're going to get rid of it. And within 3 weeks, I stopped shaking. But what followed was 20 years of dumping my RNA. You know, all the things that people had told me. For example, my English teacher told me I'd never write a book because I'm useless at English. Well, I didn't know I had dyslexia.
Well,
my sister's even worse than me.
Well, you didn't just write one, right? You wrote, what, 17?
17 books. Yeah, and thank God I've got spell check. Yeah. So, you know, everything that I did in this country, I came here in 82, and I'm proud to be an American. I love America. And I'm not happy to be a Brit anymore, because you go there and you know, you go around London, it's just swamped with visitors. And you can walk streets and you don't hear an English language, and all the English people have moved north. Yeah. So, you know, it's not about race or anything. It's just about too many peoples in a small country, you know.
So with this crystal acupuncture, I mean, it helps to heal people, right? I mean, obviously it helped you with your Parkinson's. I mean, is it something that should be practiced daily, or just when like you feel in pain?
If you're seriously ill or you're having pain or anything, you should always be doing it. But I'm not just leaving people high and dry. I wrote breakthrough therapies. That was the first one I really wrote. Breakthrough therapies, crystal acupuncture and pterogram therapy. In there is all the theory, and includes about some of the DNA you were talking about. And then the diagram book, the book of crystal acupuncture and pterogram therapy diagram, is where I had to draw everything, because it's all in here. I had to draw it and then learn to do the computer and make plates of every treatment, from toothache to, you know, your 5 bodies energy, to cancer of every kind. It's all in there. So, you know, if anybody wants to treat themselves, all they have to do is find their local crystal store now. See, back when I started this, you couldn't even buy crystals.
Right.
Yeah. So I was using shards of rocks that I found on the floor, you know, on the ground, when I went to parks and things. And when I got older, the first quartz came out. It was for a watch, and this guy was holding this thing, and I could see these rainbows coming from where it had been. You know, I could see the trail of the light as it was leaving it. And I really begged him, went on at him until he said, take the daffodil. And I still have it today. I made it into a pendulum. And I use that when I'm dousing my essential oils. Yeah.
That's neat. You talk about God and oneness. What is the goal for the oneness? What is the goal for us individuals as part of the oneness as well?
To keep it, the way of the oneness is to expand and contract, always re-evolving and changing in some way, shape, or form. You know, if we integrate other species from other planets, it's so vast, you wouldn't even comprehend it in this world. You know, I mean, we measure things by feet and inches, if you see what I mean, compared with the enormity of miles and miles of something that we can't even understand. So I would say that basically the oneness is your world as you perceive it, because that's the part you need to work with. and bring that into your embodiment so that you are able to feel the joy of living your life, doing the things you want to do that make you happy. And in the process of doing that, you're positive, and so you shine a light out there in the world somewhere. And that way people feel you and want to learn from you or share with you or do something with you, you know, and that's what we call peace. But at the same time, if you look at this world right now, because of COVID, we've got people, you know, drowned to death, lands swamped with water, no food. We've got people fighting over their leaders or whatever. We've got us trying to figure out what we're going to do with our monies and our medicines and whatever, you know. This world is topsy-turvy, and everyone's afraid we're going to have third world war. But you know what Spirit said to me, oh, 1982, I wrote it down. Israel is doomed, Egypt is lost, Chairman Mao sings like a putty cat. Well, we've got to remember it really means China. And so that means they're going to say a lot, but not do a lot. And then Turkey is divided, Iran is lost, everything's come to pass. So here is a proof that the oneness knows what's going to happen before it happens, because all time is now. But that's hard for us to understand that, you know.
Yeah, it is.
It is. It's really hard.
Is
But
there?
I like to encourage people to meditate. They can get their own story.
Oh, absolutely. Meditations. I think it's a must. I think it should be taught at an early age, and they should do it in schools and do it everywhere, and it should be a daily practice for everybody. But that's just my opinion. So with that being said, then is there an end to us, an end to our conscious energy, or do you think we just continue to exist and evolve?
There's never an end to, we are a biogenetically engineered species. We have the DNA of aliens, yes.
Yes.
Okay. And we've discovered and already using many of the techniques they used eons of time ago, when we were made, if you see what I mean. And here we are, we can go into the womb while the baby's in its early growth and interfere with the, you know, the DNA and the RNA and the telomeres and all that stuff that people talk about now. Whereas when I was a baby and young girl, nobody knew that. There was no understanding of the things that we know today. And so we've come very far with technology, but we don't understand technology. It's all experiment. And when you think about the Germans and developing the rockets, for example, that they were throwing over to us in England to try and kill us all, he eventually came over here and I can't think of his name right now, and it doesn't matter, but
You're talking about the German scientists,
yes,
the ones that started NASA and all that.
right,
Van Braun, I think was
yeah,
one of
that's
them.
it. Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you. I know his name full well, I just couldn't think of it. I don't like bringing people up too much by names, but he was inspired and he was psychic. It's the same with I'm sorry, I always lose all these names. I'm trying to think, you know, the guy who was a medium as well, and he was into technology and all that stuff from his time. And I'm sorry, I can't think of his name either. Tesla, thank you. You know, when I'm talking, I have to be honest, it's not just me. I've got spirit guides in my head. And so
it's okay. It happens to me a lot. I'll forget names and I just can't. It's just getting one of them. You know, it's all good. Yeah, but I knew who you. I had an idea who you were talking about. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think.
So he was ahead of his time. They were each ahead of their time, and of course, people took what they knew and made them work with it in different ways relative to those times. But if you could bring those people back to now, what would they tell us? Something different. Well, that's the case with the oneness. Those of us who are given something to bring to the world, we will give it, we will demonstrate it, we will share it, and we leave. Now, that doesn't mean we're ended, because eons of time in the future, we might come back with part 2. or 5 or 6, who
Right.
knows how, we don't recall it all while we're here. But everyone in the oneness is constantly moving. I've got a book, 2 books. The Dark Side I wrote after my husband passed, and then I've got the I have to stop the
Quantum entanglement.
no, I'll get there in a minute. That was written with Einstein a long time ago. No, what was the other one? I'd not been out too long. The Light Side of the Oneness. And that explains the planes and the levels and the evolutions, and how, as we aspire to go up, those who are up are aspiring to come down. So we're constantly doing this. We think of it as we're aspiring to be God. And we're up here.
Yeah.
Okay. But if we all turn up here as God, what would happen? Nothing. So there is controversy here, and then some decide to come down. Meanwhile, down in the lower level, I'll do it this way up, we're all fiddling around trying to discover who we are to climb up the ladder.
So you're
here
saying
on
there
the
has to
earth,
be
we do the
balance?
same. There has to. So there's constant like this. And there's 7 planes, and we are the 4th plane. And within each plane are 7 levels. So with this 49 levels we have to go through to get to the top from the bottom. And when we finally get to the top, then we have to go the other way, come down while this lot comes up. So everything is materializing and dematerializing. Everything is growing and evolving, disappearing and coming back as something else. Eons of time. In time we can't even understand, but in the oneness is almost instantaneous.
And why is it that we can't all become enlightened and be part of oneness? Because there's a lot of people that talk about that, like that's humanity's goal. Is it perhaps that if we're all that way, like there's no more room for learning, or what?
No. The bottom line is, let's put it this way: if you go to school and you study German and you're fluent, okay, then somebody wants you to teach German somewhere. But let's say in another 100 years, German language has been dropped and we've got Swedish instead because of wars or something that's happened there. Then, okay, we've changed, just to put it in languages. So if we go back to prehistoric man, he grunted. They say that we all had one language. Well, we did, because we weren't many of us. But then we subdivided and went our different ways, and we evolved languages. So in the same way, we learned how to go from hunting to farming to industrial to where we're at today, technical. And because we see that in our awareness, because we've got some records, we think we're evolving. But hey, we've been technical thousands of years. Earth is billions of years old. It's a stopping place for anyone who wants to stop here and learn and grow. It's the as I said, it's a central place for us to learn, for our universe, never mind the other universes.
And you believe that as conscious energy, we could eventually, or energy, we could eventually possibly incarnate into somewhere else, right? Other than like Earth, somewhere.
You can incarnate anywhere else, anytime.
Right.
Right. If you wanted to, just to make it silly, to look like a sloth, walking around all slow, and there's going to be somewhere, not in our universe, but somewhere else where they live like that. But to us, that seems crazy, because we all run around like ants, busy bees or something else. In our mind, we relate to the animals and the insects and whatever. I would know when I was in Japan, I used to stand up and watch them all crossing the multi-zebra crossings all over the place. They look like ants from high up. Yeah, it's quite interesting. But we don't really understand consciousness. That's my opinion. We think we understand consciousness, but we don't. We've got psychology, psychiatry, we've got religions, philosophy, theology. And all this is going round and round. It's like trying to make a cake with all the wrong ingredients. That's how I see it. But it's okay. it's okay to make mistakes because that's how we learn.
Right. Try to figure out the puzzles to the pieces of the puzzle, or however you want to say it. Your one book, Discovering Your Baby Spirit, why is that important for
Okay.
mothers?
Well, that goes from way before you're even pregnant, because, as I said earlier in the beginning of the show, we have 7 generations or even more if we're really old souls, while we're waiting for our turn to come down. And so usually the baby that's going to come to the woman and live will come in around 18 months before she actually gets pregnant, around her. And that's when she starts feeling like, I think I'm ready to have a baby, let's think about that and so on. And then when she does get the baby has to come into her womb and absorb her personality, her character, and mix her soul structure coding with the baby's soul structure coding, which is spiritual. And so there's a bonding in the womb. And then once the baby pops out, then independence rises right there and then, because the brain kicks in as the waters break, or if they had yanked out of the womb by cesarean, that's a rough awakening, but they usually know spiritually it's going to happen. Then that baby has either a strong emotional lead or a strong mental lead right there and then, but you can't tell because they're just lying there like, like a little sweet thing, But as they grow up, you can see it, you can really see it. And so the book tells the mothers what kind of child you have. You could have a hero, a star, an indigo, a crystal, or a liquid crystal. Now, the liquid crystal children are old souls. They're here to clean up the mess. I'm a liquid crystal child. I didn't know till I finished the book. Yeah.
And then what are the other ones? You mentioned indigo. I've heard people refer to indigo before. What's that?
Okay, I'll categorize it. Hero likes to fix everything. Okay, the star always says, I don't belong here on this planet. I don't know why I'm here. I got to find a role to follow. The indicos are the psychics who read tarot cards and do good service coaching and all that kind of thing, but they never want to go higher into the oneness because they're coded to be on the ground and work with people on the ground. Okay, so they do a good job. And then the crystal children, they came in. There's been different names for them in ancient times. This is what Spirit said for now. The crystal children coming in were the birthing of the technology age. And so they're crystals. If you think the original radio that you bought had crystal tubes in. Okay, so we're going back quite a ways before we realized they had a name like crystals. And so they were the ones that birthed the idea of whatever they could do with technology crystals. And the liquid crystals, they're the transformation from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age. The Piscean age, in a nutshell, was defend, attack, own, control, manipulate. The Aquarian age is listen, watch, use your 5 senses, learn, and evolve so that you can harmonize. Big difference. But it's going to take another 100 years for me and my children are dead. And their children are now mums and dads bringing up the change.
Do you hold out hope for humans? Do you believe that we've got a lot of, I guess, we obviously have a lot of room to grow, but I mean, do you believe that, perhaps we can alter our path and go evolve into a higher spiritual
We can all, well, like I said, we all have this goal to ascend to the top and be a sacred master teacher or something. But when you get there, it's no different from being a teacher here on earth. You go to work, you do your job, you get your kids, you have happy days, you have days when they all play up. So when you get up here, you're looking down at all your babies on this level and you think, okay, they need me. So you come back down and help out. And, you know, and of course, a lot of them are up and down in different levels and people don't know. So they might have a guide that's ascending. They might have another guide that's descending. You know, it's quite complicated. So that's in, I've got several books on the soul coding, but I have a very fat books like that. It's called now I have to stop and think because we renamed it. Journey into an Unknown World, The Way to Oneness Revisited. And there's meditations in there to do. It explains in the beginning was the word and the word was vibration. I wrote that in 1982. I came up, it would be 1983 and 4. I settled it. So about 85. And we had it out by 86. It went into German, first publishing, a very dry version of it. And they sold 5,000, then 6,000, and then the wall came down. They sold 12,000 in East Berlin.
Wow.
Within a week.
And that's I mean, that's pretty forward thinking for that time, I think. I mean, that wasn't common, not like it is now anyway. Not in 86.
No, well, the Germans always were smart. My mother always said the Germans had all brain and no heart. That was because of war, but they were driven. And I was just watching World at War the other night, and I found out that they were given drugs so that they could keep invading. And now most of them methamphetamines. And so a lot of them after war, they were just drug addicts. I didn't know that. I thought it was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a terrible time in our world's history. And
it was for everyone.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine being somebody that had to live through that. No matter on what side you were in, or you know where you were in the world, it would be.
Well, right now the Middle East is going through it, and you know, as I said earlier, that it's all doomed. But in a way, in the overview, it must bring us to unification of philosophy and religions or whatever. I mean, we've had too many years of my religion's better than your religion, and it's not. It's just a perception. I mean, I could worship my mouse if I want to, you know, and everyone would say I'm insane. But if that makes me happy, that's all that matters. And as long as we, you know, with this Jewish / Muslim thing going on over there, you know what Spirit said to me? When Trump said he was going to bring the temple back onto the side of Israel, what Spirit said to me, the wall comes down, and I know everyone's going to scream at me, but when that wall comes down, that praying wall, they can build right there a temple and the synagogue side by side. They go in this way, they go in this way, and the whole oneness will receive unity of love from God because they're in one building. Because prayer is prayer. Doesn't matter who you are.
That's right.
Doesn't matter what religion you are.
That's right.
You speak to God. So all they need is a new house. So everybody hate me now. As I said that. Yeah.
Well, listen, it's been a fascinating discussion. Where can we find the work that you're doing, and maybe talk a little bit about your practice? I don't know. Are you open to like taking on people as far as like healing and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've been practicing my whole life, of course. I did have a center here in Havasu, but with COVID, I had to close it. Plus, I didn't like the stairs. Older folks couldn't climb up them. So I'm back working in my house. I have a treatment room, a teaching room, and a counseling room here. And I've been taking colloidal silver. So I didn't have the inoculations at all. I'm, as you say, pretty fit and healthy. By the way, you can even put colloidal silver on a cotton bud and put it up here, and if you know, anything that goes up your nose, it's dead. No matter what it is, you won't even catch a regular cold. Yeah, so anyone who, some people drive here and want to be with me, some people want to do Zoom, sometimes I do Skype. I'm working with Reverend Katie Kamara, who's just got a PhD. I've given a lot of education diplomas, so she's applied to the California University. I might add here that when I first worked with California University, I was one of the first people to be qualified by them because of all the things I'd done. And that's how I got my doctorate. Okay. And since then, I've trained a lot of people. So some of my students have gone in under that umbrella. And so now, what I'm doing with Katie Kamara is we are doing some talks every Saturday. And you can find the links for that on Facebook, and it's put up there as well, reruns and stuff. I'm doing my own show on Dr. Margaret Speaks once a week on we put it up on YouTube, and we also put it up as an audio file on SoundCloud. And then I've got Katie's building easypeasysolutions.org, where they will come and learn lectures, talks, things like that. And if they want to seriously study with us and get examinations and qualifications, then they'll come over to Samara's Education Center for the school. And if they want to go into the religious side, where I can train them to be reverends, ministers, they go into universalchristchurch.com. And then we've got other things as well. So we're trying to build a university online that would give CUs and get them qualified with all their schooling if they're American. That helps a lot because we can also do it through colleges and things. We're building this, and hopefully it'll work well. So we're just starting. It takes time to be known and what you're doing, of course.
Excellent. You guys check out her books. Fascinating discussion. I'd love to have you back on sometime. We didn't even touch the surface of your knowledge and some of this stuff. So definitely would love to have you back on. Thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed talking. I'm a talker.
Thank you.